Hello, everybody. Welcome to Encounter Balance. My name's Jeff. Today, we are starting off session 1 of a new campaign that we're going to be running using the Song of Ice and Fire. This is taking place in a homebrew setting that I made for this campaign. And we'll go ahead and start off the bat here with just some introductions as far as who the players I have here. Let them go ahead and introduce themselves, any projects that you guys are working on, anything that's going on in your lives that you want to bring up. We'll go ahead and just go through all that. Go ahead and start with Zach.
Sure. I'm Zach. Playing an older guy, our Lord's younger brother, Hallis, and he's been around the block a few times. He has a lot of life experience, a lot of war experience. His kind of main goal and the thing that he strives for every day is to be an excellent marksman. He's an archer, and that's what he works on day to day, and that's his passion, and he's good at it, and he's rather spry and witty for his age. Yeah, that's about it. Go ahead, Chris. Did you guys not hear any of that?
Oh, no, I did.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I heard you.
I'll
I
hop
think
in
Chris
there.
might be working out something there. Rory, if you want to go ahead.
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Rory. I have a channel called RPGeography, basically just streaming games, though, at this point. I am playing Skender Aribi. So I'm the second-born son of Lord Aribi. Sort of your standard second-born son issues, kind of rebelling against the order of the house and the structure of nobility and so on. So he's actually returning at this point from a bit of a sojourn. He likes to explore new places, and main points to know about Skender: he doesn't like to play the games of nobility. He's brutally honest, which leads him to be very poor at persuading anybody to do anything. And he generally gets along with people 1 or 2 meta status points below him. And that's Skender.
Yeah, I'm Chris. I run the channel Drop Dice. I do a lot of stuff on Drop Dice, pretty much whatever takes my fancy. Mostly I've been doing Legend of the Five Rings lately, so if you are interested in the Fantasy Flight beta rules, I've got lots of content already on there for it. Very detailed kind of breakdowns of stuff, and after this game is done, I'll actually be recording another short 10-minute video talking about the beta and probably my experiences with character generation, which we did yesterday.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely would recommend you check out those videos if you're interested at all in the new L5R. I've watched a couple of them, and they're all really good. Who has never been that system before or that so it's been really helpful to have. It's a system that I'm interested in. Alrighty, and with that, we will go ahead and get right into the game here. So, the 3 of you are currently in your castle keep up in the mountains where you've made your home, where your house has been for centuries. It's one of the more prominent houses in the region. Next to the major house, there are a few other houses that can claim the history, success, and glory that yours has held years over years through war and peace. A lot rests on your house's honor and merit. As you guys know, this region, more so than most, is much more of a meritocracy than the lineage of other houses, which tend to be more traditional as far as who gets what status. Status is much more earned than born. I've received two of you. Sorry. To meet soon for something that he has not yet told you of. In the meantime, though, we'll start with Gavril. As you're waiting to answer your father's summons for the correct time, what's Gavril up to? What's going through his head, and what's he occupying his time with?
So Gavril Hawk is a bastard born to the noble house, and particularly the father who leads this house. He spends most of his time being a rake, is kind of the most polite way to put it. He goes to court. He drinks too much. He duels too much. He tries to pick up women. He's basically the 18-year-old that no father is particularly proud of, but he's kept around because he was kind of swept up from his place of low birth as a bastard into the castle because of his swordsmanship. He's been hailed as a prodigy of his style. And I think that when we see him, what he's done is he's gotten bored, and he's taken out his sword, and there's a fine vase, like a 5-foot tall one that has these huge flowers looming out of it from probably a foreign country. They're definitely not native to the region. And he's purposely like cutting between the leaves to basically practice his precision. He's doing his best to basically not strike leaves off of the plant itself, but still making the thrusting maneuvers as the wind kind of gently moves the plant.
And as the sword strikes whiz between the leaves, the complicated swordsman maneuvers, we move over towards Skender. What is Skender doing at this moment while he's waiting? What's going through his mind?
Skender still has all of his things kind of spewing out of a bag in the middle of his room, and he's sitting there polishing his spear with its kind of shining, like copperish bronze head, and just he's sort of grumbling to himself. He's been gone for some time, and he just feels like as soon as he comes back, he's summoned to his father's court, which is the very place that he ran away from. He's kind of looking at his things and wondering as to whether or not he should unpack them fully or leave them as they are so he could leave quickly if need be. But for the time, he's willing to see what his father has to say.
Finally, as we see Skender just unpack himself before he's been immediately summoned, Alice.
So after as soon as he receives the summons, he would probably be making his way up there, even if it was hours early, just to stand around outside, see who he could meet or see what he could do. And he's probably just leaning up against a wall somewhere, maybe near the gate that we enter, or somewhere nearby. And he has a stone, like a piece of something really rough, like a volcanic kind of porous rock, and he's rubbing it on the palms of his hands, taking down the calluses right below his fingers and on his two bow fingers, He has to maintain nice, even, level skin, or else he'll tear the calluses off when he shoots his bow. And that's what he's doing right now.
Being already there, it's not too long after at Gavril as your blade whizzes between another set of leaves. This plant. You hear a light tap come from behind you in the room. If you were to turn, you'd see it's one of the servant girls of the castle. So, I'm so sorry to interrupt, my lord. But it's almost time. You don't want to. Your father will be upset.
And Gavril pauses for just a moment, and he kind of thinks for a moment. And he turns, and as he turns, he twists his wrist, and it just takes off one of these huge leaves that are on the side, and about half of a flower with the razor's edge of that sword. And he goes, I've never thought myself much of a lord. Sheaths the sword and sits down.
She looks kind of taken back by this comment. She doesn't know how to react in a way that's polite towards your station. She just says, "Yes, but do I still call you my lord?"
Sure, that'll be fine. And kind of the conversation has led Gavril to feel a little uncomfortable, so he's kind of like sat himself down and stopped kind of fussing and picking at things. Of course, I await his command, as always.
He expects you within a few minutes. She kind of bows nervously but as politely as she can muster and goes to take her leave. And I imagine assuming Gavril does go, it's not too long after that he would see Skender also on the way.
Yeah, there's a few moments where he kind of just sits and waits, and he kind of takes in the idea of being a lord for a moment, before he finally gets up and he kind of nods to himself, and he picks up a dark green cloak that's been draped over one of the chairs inside this waiting room, and he pins it over one shoulder and then pulls the other end underneath his armpit. It's one of those half capes that duelists of this area have fashioned themselves. So yeah, I'll head to the meeting area.
All right, and Gavril, as you head out, you see him moving, having left nearly at the same time as you, having gotten this message from one of the servants as you have. You can assume that Hallis is already well ahead of you with things like this, but the two of you are on the less formal side. And you catch him heading out just as you are.
Any word, Gavril, on what our Lord would like from us this evening?
None, as always. We wait in attendance, as always.
Well, could be worse. Could be surrounded by nobles.
That is true. But the night is still young. And I think he pulls the cloak a little closer. The weather, I feel like, has probably been a little bit unseasonably cold lately.
And being high up in the mountains, it's generally chilly in general, even more so than normal. The chill hangs over. And it's not too much longer after the two of you walk the gate to the main hall of the castle where your lord will be waiting you. It's been waiting there for quite some time, it seems. Routinely, Hallis.
As Skinder and Gravel approach, Hollis is still just leaning leaning against the wall right next to the gate, and he pulls out a small kind of cylindrical flask and pops the cork, takes a sip out of it, and puts it back, and he looks up just to see you two approach, and a look of he kind of rolls his eyes, and a look of oh no, not again crosses his face, to see that it's the two of you again that get paired up with him for whatever they're in for. He doesn't say anything as you guys approach.
Skender will kind of boisterously call out to this man and just say, "Uncle, early as ever, eager to do the Lord's work."
This lord, that lord, whatever. We best get inside.
Of course. And Gavril will be the one that opens the door, just out of forced kind of like a reinforced thing that he does, recognizing his station compared to the others.
And the doors creak open. The large castle hall. It's the Lord Doran Aripi, father and brother to the three of you. He's not sitting at the chair at the head of the long table. He's pacing around behind it. Things to do. You're finally here. Good. Have a seat.
Take a seat, of course.
Yeah, as does Skender.
Yeah, Alice would as well.
He walks along the side of the table behind Skender and behind Gavril. I think it's high time that we finally put the two of you to the test. Prove yourselves. Earn the name for this house. Get some glory under your belt and some experience.
Hallis mumbles agreed under his breath. Agreed.
House Mayor is putting on a tournament in honor of the newest child that's just been born to their family. I'm not able to attend. I have business. Your brother Manuel is not able to attend either. Yet custom says lords of the house must be there, must participate. Looks over to Skender. I know how much you love one of the house. But perhaps at least one of these activities might suit you.
Yes, Father, I'd say so. If you wanted me to hang out or keep company with your friends, you should have enticed me with games of spears and swords in the past, I would be eager to take up such a task.
You should be eager to your heritage because you are my son, not because I entice you with games. Hoped you would have learned that by now. Apparently, we have to use other forms of encouragement.
Skender scowls and then is a bit abashed.
Gavril, I'd like you to attend as well. You're skilled with the sword. Perhaps it's time that you prove in this house.
Gavril kind of bites back for a moment, and of course. And that's really all he says to it. There's kind of a moment where the audience recognizes Gavril from like his flashback that he kind of enters in for a moment, remembering earlier that spring when he fought off raiders and was considered kind of the hero of the day, thinking to himself, have I not done enough?
And of course, that would immediately followed by the fact that nothing ever seems to be enough for Doran. His expectations are always one step further than you walk, one step higher than you climb. Especially that you have to do to prove yourself compared to your brother, if you would want to use that word. Doran looks over to Hallis. Babysitting Hallis. Unfortunately, as I said, I will not be able to go. I don't expect you to participate, not at your age. But someone has to make sure that these two don't kill anyone or start any wars.
Participate. I'll enter, and I'll win the damn contest again. And I'll watch over these two. Can't guarantee we'll stay out of trouble, but I'll not let them kill someone.
Sometimes I wonder about you guys. Family name has been an honor to this kingdom for centuries. Now we have to leave it to people like you.
Please, Father, your trust in us is overwhelming.
I trust you because I have to trust you. There's still much yet you have to learn. Not everything can be learned by running away from home, wandering like a vagabond. At the end of this, I'll hope you'll learn your place, what you're supposed to be.
Thank you, brother. But I think we'll be off now. That's all we need to hear. We'll try not to spoil our name.
Is there any questions that you have for me?
Are there any other particular guests that he could tell us about? Anyone we need to look into?
Yes, Hollis is right. Is there anyone I should avoid offending? And therefore avoid.
Doran grimaces. Most of the lords in the region will be in attendance. It'll be held at House Maiar itself. Lord of the region will be there. His sons will be there. The other house lords will be there. Everyone will be there.
Well, I'm glad that you won't be there. Not that I don't wish to see you participate or attend, but a lot of stuff happens at those. And
Yes, lords have a way of getting easily provoked, easily offended. It's no wonder. Again, just try not to get yourselves killed or kill anybody else.
we
He
will
looks
do our best.
particularly at you, Gavril.
Perhaps young Gavril can finally have a moment in the spotlight and prove his worth in front of other lords.
You're muted, Chris.
Gavril has gotten the gist of the conversation already, and his mind has already started to kind of wander. It's a bad habit, especially for who his father is. So narratively, I suspect that he should be slapped about now. So I think that's what's going to end up happening is he's going to get kind of backhand cuffed real quick, and he's going to come back and he says, of course, Father, forgive me. I was just thinking of how best to introduce myself to the courts. Obviously a lie and a terrible one.
Yeah, and he's heard Gavril's responses to these kinds of things plenty of times. He heard them so many times that it's hard for him to even get mad anymore. He just shakes his head. Fine. There's nothing else. Get on with it. He turns away from you and like walks backwards towards the back of the hall. You leave tomorrow morning. Pack your things and get ready.
Skender would turn quickly when he speaks his last words and start to leave the room mumbling, "Won't take me long to pack."
Doran either doesn't hear you or completely ignores you. It's hard to tell which.
Of course, brother, we'll see you on our return.
He motions to one of the open the doors of the hall and see you out. And then you'll have a moment with each other or to yourselves. If there's anything you'd like to do or say or prepare.
Is it a long journey or a relatively short journey, or?
It'll be a couple days travel. It's not incredibly far, but it's certainly not down the road.
Well, as we walk out the door, I'd say to the others, sounds like this might be kind of fun. Keep your heads up.
Oh, well, it'll be fun, surely enough, to challenge a few of these pompous windbags, but still, that man knows just how to get under my skin.
I'm sure there's a tavern somewhere that we haven't been to yet and that will take our mind off of things.
Perhaps a tavern you haven't been to, although I doubt there's a tavern that Gavril hasn't been to.
Gavril doesn't get very boisterous about it. He's more reserved in the castle, and you both know that about him. You make mention to it, and he kind of sheepishly smiles and nods to himself like, yeah, that's probably true.
But a drink at any tavern would do me well. And I haven't been here for long enough again to have reacquainted myself. So if perhaps one of you would like to make a suggestion on a location, I will gladly follow.
Sure. Gavril definitely recognizes some of the taverns that are inside the region. The one that that he's going to kind of direct them to, it's one that at least the younger boys remember their uncle catching them when they were far too young to be at the bar at. It's like this little bar that's just outside of town, about an hour's ride. And there's stuff inside there that kind of is reflective of their childhood. Like there's a table that has a broken leg that their uncle had to fix. And so like the kind of poor carpentry skills of the uncle, who's obviously a warrior, show inside that one leg, and that's the table that they end up sitting at. And it's revealed to the camera because Gavril sits down and he goes, hey, and kind of taps the leg.
Are you referring to me as the uncle?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, Hallis, not my best trait. Not my best work either.
That's okay. They don't expect you to come wielding hammers now, do they, when they ask for your help?
No, not in the least.
So, tell me, Uncle, has Father told you anything beyond his usual cryptic message of don't embarrass the family?
No, not this time, unfortunately. Sounds like just your standard tournament. I expect you to win it this time, though. The sword fight, that is.
Well, it'll be my first year in. I suspect that if you were to place side bets, you could make some good money on it, at least.
Oh, I will. I plan on it. And you'd do well to do the same.
Of course.
Wonder if they'll have any of the open melee events this year. I would love to spin a spear and see the look of surprise on those noble faces. Oh, you're not holding a sword. What do I do? Ha!
I suspect they will, and you may yet see someone wielding a spear other than yourself.
For a moment, before I smack it from their hands. And he's, meanwhile, kind of looking like up and over their heads for like a server and trying to catch one of them and making like one of these 3 symbols up just to try to get drinks as soon as possible.
At that, Hallis kind of just pulls out his flask and takes a sip again and says, someday you guys will learn to carry one of these.
And someday, Uncle, you'll learn to share.
He says, well, I would, but tips the flask upside down and says, I'm fresh out.
We are all in need. And Gavril kind of stands up and he says, who around here is skilled as me with a sword, with a tankard? You are quite lacking, my friend. This table needs 3 drinks.
Yeah, and it's not too long especially after Gavril stands up and says this, that a server like basically runs up to you guys. He didn't see you guys come in. I'm so sorry, my lords. And I imagine Gavril, having been here more than than the others would recognize this man. His name is Dimitri. He's been at this tavern for as long as you guys have been sneaking in here. I didn't see you come in, my lords, and Mr. Hawk.
I was forgiven, Dimitri. Please, 3 drinks if you would. We have a long journey ahead of us, and frankly, foreign ale does not satiate our palates quite as well.
Of course. And he looks over to the other 2 of you. Wine for the lords or ale as well?
Ale. None of that fancy wine stuff here.
Ale as well, Dimitri. The usual. Wine doesn't sit well with me this time of night.
Of course, my lords. Foolish to ask. And he scurries off before you can respond.
Well, that wasn't too hard. And Gavril sits down, kind of re-straightening his cloak before he sits on the back of the chair. I've not been to this land. Do either one of you know anything of this family that we'll be working with? Father has kept me sheltered in swordsmanship classes for far too many years.
Yeah, what do we know about this region? Is it any
so
kind of...
House Mayor is the one of the 10 major houses. It's the house that presides over the whole region that your house is a part of. So basically, in the hierarchy of the houses, they're at the top of this region. They're, like, to use another, like a Game of Thrones example, there'd be like House Stark in the north. Like, kind of everything goes up to them, and they rule over the region.
Is there a particular geographical kind of comparison, or? I mean, are they known for something? Are they?
I mean, they're known as the rulers of the region, which is a pretty big one. They're further down the mountains than you guys are. You guys are kind of set up into the top, kind of, and closer to the border. They're a little bit more centralized to the land itself, and the mountains kind of come down into like hills, where like the main capital, which is where they're located, is.
Would it be realistic for Skender to have a sort of view of them just pertaining to our house creation, since we are a minor house, but we are a very powerful minor house? Might he view them as sort of a figurehead house that maybe there's a bit of contempt, as if we wanted to, we could rule this region?
I mean, there's always kind of that lingering thought, especially in like these regions, which are much more of a based on merit than based on lineage, unlike most traditional medieval societies. They are one of the 10 major houses, which means that their status is set in stone. The minor houses rise and fall basically based on their whims. But that being said, they're not completely without their own merit. They're definitely skilled warriors and skilled leaders. So it kind of probably be a mixture. Maybe you could take them if you wanted to, but at the same time, it wouldn't exactly be an easy fight.
Yeah, I think Skender would think that, but it might not be. He would probably be exaggerating it. To him, it's just, I think Skender would kind of look over, just, be saying something to the effect of, like, they're your typical major house. We'll have to tiptoe around them, or else we'll be forced to lose to them in the melee, because as usual, the major houses cannot be tested. They are so important. Dripping with sarcasm.
Good to know. In that case, I will do my best to mind my manners. Gavril takes like a long swig, like this may be his last drink for a while.
Gavril, don't go doing something like that. That'll ruin all the fun.
Alice
Fun,
says,
yes, but Father unfortunately has been out of sorts since you left. His punishments are not nearly as kind as they used to be.
you get the punishment you deserve.
And
He's
that
our
is what
Lord.
Father says as well. So I look for no punishment, and Gavril will raise his glass as if to toast it.
Hallis will be the first one to hold up his drink to agree and say, someday, here's to fighting the battles that we can, because we'll never win the war.
Skender will just say, yeah, to drinking.
I will drink to that. And finish off the mug.
It's not too long after that Dimitri stops by again. Another round for the Lords?
If you two wish. I believe I'm fine for this evening.
Hallis says, before we go, and he holds up his flask, do you mind filling this up?
And Skender just kind of rolls his eyes at that and says, well, if we're going to wait for that, you might as well bring me one more.
Of course, my lords. And he looks over to you, Gavril, with like kind of a look of surprise, like, done already? Like, he's used to you.
Yeah,
He doesn't
absolutely.
say anything, but you can read on his face, but like,
There's like kind of yeah, I'm fine. Not really, but I'm fine. Kind of look that exchanges.
yeah, he just like gives you kind of this quizzical expression and then just nods. Rushes off within a couple minutes. He's back with another cup of ale for Skender and a filled flask for Hallis.
Pops the cork in it and puts it in a little he has kind of a holster that he keeps at his waist. It's a little leather pouch that's shaped to the flask that he slides right into.
Yeah, and Skender quaffs his quickly in order to not hold anybody up. And he'll wipe his face and just, that was good. Are you well stocked, Hallis? I think your headphones fell off. Yeah, he was just commenting that you must be well stocked.
I am now. Thanks to him, that'll last me at least until tomorrow.
Not if you share.
True. Always be prepared. Something I've learned. Done a lot of traveling in my time, and you never know where the next tavern might be. Could be a day, could be a week.
Yes, let us go before one changes their mind.
And Dimitri stops by one last time. I assume, and he looks over to Gavril, we'll be sending for payment from the castle as usual.
Of course. My father knows how this works. He wouldn't be a lord if otherwise. And Gavril will kind of sweep the cloak around in that same overly done flourish. Dimitri, if I do not make it back, you were a gentleman and a scholar. Never let anyone change your recipe.
Kind of looks at you confused. If you don't make it back?
There are duels to be had and honor to be won. No one can be certain in this life.
Hallis kind of reaches over and pats Dimitri on the back and gives him that the look of, "It's all right, we'll be back," as you two walk ahead of him.
Of course, may your battles go ever in your favor, as always.
Oh, Dimitri, I hope that there is no battle. I simply want a courtly duel. Far be it from me to enter a battlefield again.
Of course, I have a hard time keeping all your noble terms straight. May your courtly duels be ever in your favor.
Thank you.
He'll scamper back towards other patrons in the bar and leave you three to your own devices.
Well, my companions, I suppose a good night's sleep would be in order, although I'm not usually the one advocating for responsible decisions. I am no stranger to travel, and we will have a long one ahead of us.
Agreed. See you two in the morning.
Yes, in the morning.
Of course.
All right, and with that, as the three of you head back towards the castle and get settled in for the night, unless there's anything in particular that you would like to do instead of sleeping, you can go ahead and do that now, or else we'll go ahead and move through the night.
No, I don't think there's a chat, but I think at some point in the night, Gavril finally breaks from his "I should be the responsible child that I'm being asked to be," and he will end up in the bar, and they won't find him in the morning. He'll be passed out on a table. They'll double back eventually, find him, and Dimitri will be like, "He's over there." Kind of expecting this to have happened.
That's awesome.
As we approach y'all, Hallis grabs a cup off the table of who knows what and splashes it on his face. Yells, "Get up. Let's go."
Milani. Oh, jeez. What? Oh, Uncle. Where did Milani go? And he kind of looks around for the barmaid. Rough night. He smells his hand. Someone has been spitting their tobacco in this wine. And he'll get just like a little bit of just some of the dishwater from behind the counter. Like he doesn't even care about etiquette or anything or being nicety. He's just reaching behind the bar, splashes some fresh water on his face. And he says, "Of course, where did my cloak go?" And there's a cloak that's hanging from one of the roof timbers, and he finally fishes it down after a few moments. The road, of course. Can't disappoint father. And clips it back in place.
Skender's going to laugh at all this and just say, he's going to say, "Oh, Hawk," referring to his bastard name. "You had me worried a bit last night. I thought you had traded in your wings for a pair of court shoes, but I see that's not the case at all."
A minor slip up, I swear. Again, obviously a poor lie.
I do believe they don't make court shoes in his size.
Oh, the thing about court shoes is they come in any size you're willing to pay for.
Well, then maybe it will yet happen. I don't know.
Father's been sizing me for mine for years.
I've got an old pair you can borrow. I've never used them.
Well, Hawk, are you... Well, I doubt you're ready, but let's go.
Of course. And Gavril will grab his pack from the corner and head out without further complaint or issue.
Alrighty, and with that, the three of you begin to ride off. Your father, of course, has given you horses for the journey. It's about a five-day ride, 7 if it gets slow, until you reach House Meyer. And as the journey begins, the first couple nights go without too much incident. But during the day of the 4th day of travel, as you're riding into a small town, it's in service to your house, but quite far from it. A woman, as you begin to ride up towards the edge of the town, runs out to greet you. My lords, what brings you to our town? She kind of looks a little nervous. We weren't expecting
I'm
company.
told that there is a great cure for a hangover in this little village. Please tell me I have not traveled for naught.
Of course, of course. Yes, yes.
I only jest. What do you need?
We weren't expecting your company. I'm afraid we're not well prepared for visitors at the moment.
We're not looking for any haughty treatment, my lady. Just a place to sit down.
We're just passing through, my lady. There's no real requirements needed.
And you can see that this does little to ease her fears. You can tell it doesn't take much of a check of anything to see that something's clearly still bothering her.
Alice pipes up and says, "You seem like you have your feathers in a ruffle, my lady. What seems to be the matter?"
No, there's no trouble. As I said, we're not really fit for visitors at the moment. If you could just, just pass right on through and be on your ways. I apologize for the inconvenience.
So I don't know if this works. Can I roll a check, like to notice anything strange about her or our immediate surroundings?
Let's see. Not a
Something
master
akin
of
to
the
a
skills
perception
here.
check, I guess. Like an
Awareness might be good.
Yeah, and I have
Yeah.
I have a bonus
Yeah.
in notice.
Yeah.
So I can do like a notice check, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead and so you'll roll basically whatever your skill rank is in that skill. You'll roll that many dice and add them up. If you have a bonus dice, you'll roll that and exchange that for the lowest number, I believe.
So take the best 4 out of 5 if I have one bonus dice.
Yeah, essentially that's what you'll do.
Sure.
You can technically take whatever dice you want, but it almost always benefits you to take the higher.
Sure. That's a 15.
Yeah, I mean it's your eye and your experience is fairly well trained to this sort of thing. You can tell that it looks like she's trying to hide something. Like you get the feeling that she's trying to deflect you away.
Like trying to get rid of us.
Yeah.
sorry, is this still our, like, is this our kingdom still?
I mean, it's getting close to the border, but it's generally within its land. Yeah.
So just picking up on Hallis's kind of careful probing, Skinner would just kind of lean over and try to mumble. I don't know if he can keep this out of her earshot, and be like, "It's seems a bit of odd treatment to be getting on our own lands."
Is there a place nearby where we could water our horses and maybe grab a bite? Asking the lady.
Of course, my lords. Yes, follow me.
Great, great. We all follow.
And you can tell again, kind of with your notice check being as high as it was, like the path that she takes you through town seems very particular. Like it's like she doesn't take you just down like a straight path to a certain, like she kind of winds around like a certain area before like coming to a restaurant that's like on the other edge of this small town. Able to get a meal here, and tend to your horses, and continue your journey.
Thank you very much. This will do nicely.
Yes, our thanks. And he would hop down from his horse, still looking at Hallis, and then back at Gavril. Gavril's a bit younger, and he expects Hallis to have more insight in this sort of situation. Is the woman still here, or did she back away?
She's still within eyesight, though she's walking rather briskly away.
Okay. So now he would say, kind of, without mumbling, to Hallis and to Gavril, this is strange, I find. Even when I was covering my arms on my travels, it's still unusual to be treated as such.
Yeah, we got the Grand Tour coming through town, didn't we? Seems as though she didn't want us to see something, or I'm not sure. Strange, though. We should probably have a small look around before we head out.
Skender's just kind of like weighing this. He's starting to think like, crap. Do I want to get mixed up in something? Because if it stops us from getting to where we need to be, that'll just be another reason for Father to think I'm a loser. But he's generally agreeing, yes. Yeah, at least a quick look around would, I think.
Yeah, Hallis kind of reassures him. Nothing in depth, but I don't think my brother would be happy if something were to slip by us, knowing that we've passed through this town on our way to the tournament.
That information hits him, and he's kind of like thinking now, damned if I do, damned if I don't. Yes, he wouldn't like that one bit.
Probably a feeling that all three of us have had many times.
Of course.
Oh, sorry.
I suppose we should just walk through the center of town until somebody comes to greet us? Or would we prefer a much less flamboyant approach?
Well, I suppose we don't want to get drawn into too much here. Maybe we could just... Did you see where she went? And he just sort of looks back kind of across the way to see if he can see where she's going.
At this point, she's ducked behind some of the houses and kind of slipped in through the streets. And she's out of eyesight. Though, with your notice, you would see that she went towards the kind of area that she winded around, like she cut back in towards that area that she kind of led you guys away from.
Hallis says, I do say, I believe this restaurant won't do. Perhaps we should find another. And he kind of gives him that look of,
Very well. Center of town it is. And Gavril just immediately starts walking.
I think Skender brings up the rear. He's just quickly grabs something out of the bags on the back of his horse, and it's a much less distinguished cloak. He just kind of pulls that out and just throws it over himself before walking off after Gavril.
yeah, Hallis also has kind of common clothes and probably a traveling cloak. It's less, obviously he doesn't want to look like who he is. He would probably already be in that.
Yeah, and I think that mainly Gavril is just going to do what he can to kind of lure out whatever she's trying to hide from us. I'm not the most perceptive person or noticing type person, but I would like to go ahead and roll a check to see if I notice anything outstanding or strange along my pathways.
Absolutely.
So, awareness. Oh, never mind. I guess I am fairly aware. I kind of forgot what my stats look like.
You're going to be looking for a routine check here, so it's a 6.
Okay. So that is 10, 16, 20 is my total.
Wow. Yes.
I have 5 dice, so.
Yeah, so with that, it's as you go back in towards town, particularly towards this direction, that this woman led you kind of away from as she went through the town to the other side, where she showed you this restaurant. As you go back in towards that part of town, in front of one of the larger buildings, it seems to be some sort of like community space sitting outside in front of the door. And right as she sees you, will immediately like turn her head like towards the door instinctively, and then try to like catch herself and correct back towards you. And she steps away from the door up to greet. Was not suitable? I can find you another one.
No, it was fine, but we have different tastes. Our uncle, unfortunately, from advanced years of age, has a sensitive stomach. Kind of like points back towards the uncle, waiting for him to just like begrudgingly nod to sell the story.
Yeah, he kind of coughs and grabs his flask and kind of tonic to settle the stomach, and takes a sip.
If you don't mind, I believe we'll do most of the exploring ourselves. We, however, did not get your name.
Maria, my lords.
Very well, Maria. Tell me, what are you hiding?
You see her face like go pale. I don't know what you're talking about.
Now, Maria, I may just be a bastard, but that allows me certain liberties that noblemen like my uncle cannot undertake. My uncle, while my caretaker and my mentor, may not be able to stop my sword from being unleashed from its sheath. Would you care to reconsider? I'd like to taunt her into revealing what she's hiding.
Awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It's going to be a 13 on that.
She rolled a 3, so you are going to vastly succeed. As you say that, she's kind of like attempting to stumble her way backwards, still looking towards you. Flips open the door and just yells, "They're here! Get out!" You start to hear like clattering from inside this building.
Hallis, although old, is agile and quick as possible for his age. Kind of at that yell, gently pushes her aside and hurries into the room.
Yeah, and as the uncle rushes past, Gavril goes, "Two forward."
I was perfect. I couldn't have said it any better myself.
And as you approach Hallis and then the others shortly after, assuming that you're going forward, you see inside there's a couple townspeople that are kind of sat against the wall, and there's 3 men, each with these long knives that are like stuffing things into bags, that are now trying to quickly tie them up. And then they look up towards the doorway out of this room that you see, and they just kind of go white and kind of turn towards you guys.
Oh, uncle, those knives look too sharp. Allow me. And Gavril will step forward and pull his sword, knowing that his uncle will not allow him to just take on all these thugs himself.
Yeah, Hallis holds out one arm, kind of in a like, just hold on a second kind of thing. And in his other hand, you'll see that although he's a bowman, he does actually have a small crossbow, kind of a light crossbow, a one-handed, one-shot kind of thing that he's leveled at the men. And he tells to the guys, "Easy now, easy. Keep those blades where we can see them."
And Skender, his spear is always draped under his cloak, kind of like strung in 2 straps, but he's not going to take anything like that off for this sort of thing. He's just going to unclip a small short sword that he'll pull from his side and say, "Well, I'm not going to let you guys have all the fun tonight."
Hallis says, "Careful, fellas. No sudden movements." Kind of talking to the 3 guys, but also the 2 of you. What do you got in those bags? What do you say you just show us? And kind of just lets it hang there.
I mean, it's not hard to tell. They're just stuffing things from this room, just anything that looks like it might be worth money.
So they're just stuffing sacks with valuables or whatever.
Yeah.
Are you fellas
Coin.
moving?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Oh, sorry. Skender was asking the 3 men. He was kind of being sarcastic with them, saying, "Are you moving? Did you get a new house?"
Yes. We were just on our way.
And he kind of rolls his eyes and says, "Sarcasm must not be a trait of the small folk. Let me be more clear with you. You're not moving. We know this. Why are you filling those bags? And what right do you think you have?"
And this man just looks like behind you guys towards Maria. At least you said her name was. To keep people away.
Is she still in the doorway? Can we see her, or is she?
The road behind you, like a couple feet back, within eyesight. And one of the men looks over towards you. Hey. Lord's 10 high price, huh? And the other two kind of like look over.
Sorry, you were kind of breaking up. What exactly did you say?
One of the men looked over towards the others, and he looked over and said, "Lords tend to fetch a high price, huh?"
Hallis says, "Ain't no one fetching any price here tonight, fellas." And he wants to. He says, "Now, if you guys put those knives down and drop the bags, and we all leave here in peace, we can avoid some bloodshed, and you guys will get to keep your hands. And perhaps, is there something akin to like taking the black? You know what I mean? Like somewhere they could be some equivalent of, rather than getting punished, they could go and do that. I want to make a bargain with them to avoid fighting, and I can roll bargain if you want.
I mean, in these lands, there's not like basically the best that you could do is like entreat the Lord not to punish them as harshly for making a deal.
I would say that then
Be within your
say that
bargaining ability.
Yeah, I'll tell him, and I'll admit that I'm the brother of that I'm Doran's brother, and that I would be willing to talk to them and talk to Doran, and maybe perhaps can save their hands, which I assume would get chopped off if they were caught thieving. If they agree to not fight, and replace the valuables, leave the valuables. Do you want me to roll bargain or persuasion?
So real quick, before you do that, so the man just looks up and says, "So you'll take us back to the castle then, Lord?"
Which castle did you talk about?
You said you were going to talk to the Lord. So what the Lord is, we go talk to him.
And I will. We'll ship you back to the castle. Someone here will be willing to take you back. In chains.
The stories say that the Lord is brutal, merciless. How do I know you can convince him?
How can I prove that I'm his brother? Do I have something?
Not that they don't believe you're his brother, they just don't believe that he can be convinced.
Oh, I see. Well, fellas, this is quite the predicament, isn't it? There is no guarantees that I'll be able to convince my brother from taking your hands, but it's either him or the three of us.
And Skender kind of like lightly kind of gripping his sword, like rubbing his hands on the hilt. And he goes, and then you have the other option, and that is to fetch a high price for us. I hope you take that one.
as you can see, it's a fair gamble, he says to the three guys. You choose. I don't have all day.
Okay, we'll go. We'll go. Like one of them says, kind of like looking towards the other.
Excellent choice, gentlemen. And Gavril will bring his sword tip to the bottom of the bags and slash them open, dumping out the contents of what they've opened, what they've helped themselves to. Let's see if we can find a constable or something.
Yeah, Skender kind of disappointed. Well, acting disappointed. He'll slam his short sword back into his hilt, and I'll go take a look, find someone in charge, and then he's not saying he has to do this by himself. If anybody else is coming, that's fine.
Yeah, Gavril will.
Yeah, as you guys are doing that, and probably taking their blades and everything, Hallis is giving them orders. Stand facing the wall, hands on top of their head, kind of thing. And we can either wait or we can walk them through town as our prisoners and find somebody that can take them. I suspect Hallis would say, one of you go and find someone, and we'll wait here. The two of us will wait here.
Oh, I think Gavril was going to come with me. So yeah, just kind of like reverse it a little bit. You'll stay here. I'm sure you can handle them, and you've taken their blades away.
Yeah, I'd make sure that their weapons are behind me, and I'm pointing my crossbow at the three of them against the wall, facing the wall.
Skender will leave back out through the door, passing the woman, Maria.
Hallis yells out the door, fine, as the two of you leave, but take her with you.
Nice.
I considered her an accomplice. You were too kind, Uncle. Too kind. And like he does that mainly as a show. Like he doesn't really care or consider her an accomplice. He just wants to kind of get her a little concerned.
Hallis is mainly just saying that so there's one less person to worry about while he waits there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Skender will kind of traipse up to her and say, Maria, you're with us. Can you, we don't have a long time. Please take us to whoever you would have arrest these gentlemen. There must be somebody.
Of course, my lords. Follow me right this way.
And for the record, you are kind of an accomplice. And I would follow.
Say anything. It's not too long after that, Hallis. One of them in this room. All right, men, run! All sprint towards the door.
Hallis's initial reaction would probably be to fire his crossbow in an attempt to slow at least two of them. The way that I see it is the three of them are against the wall, and I don't know which way the door is, right or left, but they all kind of start running towards the nearest door. Maybe it's to the right. And he shoots his crossbow to hit the wall right in front of, kind of between the first one and the second one, as more of a scare tactic than anything to try and stop them. Perhaps one runs out, but maybe the other two stop. And then as soon as he would fire that bolt, he would draw his longsword.
So from there, I think we'll go ahead and move into initiative here, since it seems to matter at this point. So that is an agility test.
Agility test. All right. probably going to ask a lot of questions these first couple times, but agility test. So I have a 4 in agility. I'm just going to roll 4 d6s. Oh, buddy.
Add them up together.
I have a specialty in quickness for agility. Does that play into this, or is that something else? Would that be more of like a reaction kind of reflex quickness thing? Or...
Yeah, I think that's more as like
like a reflex.
Like that'd be something like if you were in like a foot race or like a quick acting. I don't know if that would affect initiative actually. Trying to see, actually.
Perhaps quick on the trigger. Well, it's an 11 without the bonus. So.
I think I may have.
It does apply to initiative actually.
Okay.
I just looked it up.
Still an 11.
Alrighty. And I don't know if you caught it or not, Chris, but we're moving into initiative here as people are attempting to run. You guys will probably be close enough that you'll hear it, though you'll not be like right there as you've already kind of headed away.
Okay. And what is the skill used for that?
Agility, and if you have quickness as a bonus die, that will apply.
Okay. We keep all these dice that is the rating, right? Just want to make sure I'm doing this pool correctly here.
Whatever your skill rank is, you just roll that many dice and total them.
That's what I figured. Okay, just making sure. So that is an 18.
18, awesome.
Yep, 5d6, that'll do it.
Yep. I have a few things that I'm real good at, but if somebody gets injured, I am a complete wreck.
Yeah, I'm no good in the healing either.
Look at me.
Uh-oh. I'm still here. I'm just Batman.
I was going to say you kind of look like a bearded raccoon.
Yeah, I'm feeding my little guy. He just woke up, and if I turn the lights off in here, he'll probably go back down.
All right, moving into initiative order here. Gavril, you're first up. You see, well, you hear from within, still within earshot of the building, run, and the people inside starting to make their way to the door. At this sound, Maria is also beginning to attempt to bolt right next to you as she's not acted through initiative yet. And you're first up.
Yeah, I see Maria shift her weight, like she's going to begin to run. What I'd like to do is, let's see if there's a good way for me to do this. I think it's just going to fall under athletics. I'm going to tackle her.
Awesome.
Does that sound fair? Athletics probably for that.
think that makes sense. Of course, is going to attempt to not get tackled. Going to try to evade you here.
So, yeah. I don't have any advantages. That is a 13.
All right, that is well above her 7. So what? How exactly does that play into as you tackle her?
Yeah, he hears the run comment, sees her kind of shift the weight of her feet like she's getting ready to start running herself. And it is straight up like not a very nice move at all. He puts his full entire body weight into her like a football tackle would be. Drags her down to the ground. Blood is like all over the cobblestones. It's just a mess. And Gavril goes, "No, you don't," and just kind of like picks her up and pushes her back down again at the end of this tackle. It's the kind of thing that his father would not be proud of hearing about.
Yeah, she's just dragged down. Her face slams into the ground. Blood begins to pour from her lip. It's a struggle, but you're much stronger than she is. And Skender, you see Maria try to bolt. Gavril just tackles her to the ground, coming from inside.
Yeah, so Skender sees that, looks over, does the math real quick, realizes, frightened lady, trained swordsman tackling her, probably got that. He's going to start running back towards his uncle. Not exactly sure how far it is or how close I'll get, but he heard the shouting, so he should know where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. Trying to remember how far the movement abilities are in this.
Yeah, I wasn't sure actually about the movement mechanics.
All right, so if you don't have armor, it's or as long as it's not bulky armor, it's 4 yards. If you have bonus dice in run, or if you have only a 1 in athletics, that will affect your overall movement.
No, I have a 4 in athletics, but I don't have run.
All right, so yeah, I'd say you'll probably be able to get pretty close to the door, though not like in front of it, like just outside of its range.
And I'm just gonna drop my hand to that short sword hilt, and be ready to pull it out as I run.
Absolutely, one of these bandits, Garrosh, begins to run out of the door. Alice, you see him just with this surprising speed. You're a trained warrior, so you move pretty quick yourself, but he manages to get the jump on you. The surprise and the commotion kind of catching everyone off guard. He runs out of the door. He ends up just a couple feet out of the doorway. But then it will be your turn to act.
Are you talking to me, or is Skender face to face with this guy?
The guy ended up like pretty close to Skender. But that was his turn, so it'll go down to you.
Okay. After loosing the crossbow bolt at the wall, I assume I can do that kind of before this all, or is that my turn to do that?
I'll say that happened.
Okay. So that would happen, and then I don't know if that kind of allows just a bit of a pause. It's kind of stops the other two in their tracks, at least for a moment. And with his sword drawn, he says, now, fellas, remember the deal we had. And can I roll bargain just to see how persuasive that is?
They don't seem to be in the mood for accepting deals at the moment.
What if I'm really persuasive?
The
Okay, all right. Well, if they give me the look like they're gonna just sprint again, is that what happens?
yeah, like their weight is like basically totally shifted. They're ready to move.
Okay, their look is like, we don't speak the common tongue.
Yeah, they look like people who think that they have a better shot of running away than getting pardoned by the Lord.
Okay. In that case, whichever one's nearest to the door, I will I'll attack with my sword, but not looking for a fatal wound. Kind of looking for like a leg hit or something that would just keep them from running.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Let's see. So you roll the test dice, right? And then the damage is okay. Your total
Damage
rating,
depends on your weapon
right? Okay.
and your athletics
I'm just
usually.
trying to interpret my notes here. So I have athletics +1 for damage. So my athletics is 2, so it'd be a +1 would be just a 3, assuming that I have hit, right?
Yes,
So then that is
it'll be a fighting test.
right. That's a 15 total. Oh, a fighting test. Sorry. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 15. No, sorry. One moment. One more dice. Yes, it remains a 15.
All right, let me just make sure I'm calculating this dodge correctly. But it's plus awareness. Alrighty, so that will just barely hit. So that'll be a regular success. So you'll do just normal weapon damage.
Okay, so that would be 3.
All right, these guys are not very hardy. So you'll be able to disable him with 3 damage here.
So I imagine probably just like a hamstring slash, nothing fatal, but enough to keep them from running.
Yeah, and he lets out a howl of pain. So the gash just goes across his leg, down the back of his calf. He just falls to the ground, the leg giving out under the pain, and screams. The other running, Ramsey is going to just continue to run. He ends up out the door near the other scanner. You see 2 of them that are basically right there. Both of them turning to run away from you guys. And that will bring us back up top to Gavril. You have Maria currently pinned.
Gavril kind of just sits on her basically at this point. Now, my father said to not kill anyone. Can we please at least let me keep that promise? As she kind of like continues to squirm. And he'll pull out his left-handed dagger just to kind of be like, look, I mean business. Stop moving around.
Yeah, and under the weight of you just kind of keeping her down, and then the threat of the dagger coming out, and the threat of not trying to kill anybody, you'll feel her stop moving, resigns to her fate.
That's better. Now, and he'll grab her by the hair and turn her head the other direction. Watch my uncle throuse your friends. It will be quite enjoyable. And Gavril will pull a flask out of his coat. So long as the uncle is cool with me saying that I've done this, Gavril has pickpocketed that thing on the walk.
Totally.
That's awesome.
He just has this empty pouch,
Mhm.
and he's so used to it being there that he's not worried that it's gone. He just thinks to himself that it's empty.
And you can feel the fear shaking now with attempt to flee, but with terror as you force her to watch towards the as Skender approaches towards these two. There's two of these bandits attempting to flee.
Yeah, and Skender was, I'm kind of imagining he came around one side, they ran out and went in the opposite direction. So essentially they're straight ahead of him. So he's just kind of like, like he had run over and was pulling up, and then they start going. So then he kind of goes back into it again and kind of runs behind them. And he's going to be trying to take out he's going to fully remove his short sword now. And whichever one he is the one in behind would be the one he'd come up on first. And he's going to try to just hilt the guy in the back of the head. Like a pistol whip.
Absolutely.
Okay, so all right, let's try to do this right. Okay, so I'll just be using my fighting. I'd imagine 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, for him, you're just looking for a 6 to beat here. This is
Oh.
weapon defense.
Well, that's impossible for me not to beat. So I hit him. Now, here I was a little confused because when I was looking at the weapons, I didn't see damage directly associated with the weapon the way I expected.
If I remember right, it's in a different section, but I think it's in combat. If I remember right,
Oh, that's why.
like
It's in the
purchasing the
combat section.
equipment, but damage is in combat.
Ah, shoot. Okay.
That's correct.
Does anyone know the short sword damage off the top of their head while I pull that up?
The long sword is athletics +1, so short sword maybe.
I
just
think
athletics.
it's just athletics.
Probably just athletics. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay,
I will
so
pull it up here.
that's going to be a lot. My athletics is 4, so that's.
So the damage is just flat based on your rank. It's not a test.
Oh, right.
It's just the rank plus any bonuses.
Okay. Well, actually, oh no, I have weapon mastery, but that's in a different weapon. So that's going to be a total of 4 damage.
Alrighty, here, and let me just double check. I have the weapon chart up here right now. Is it small sword? Is that the one?
Small sword. Yep, that would.
Mhm.
It's actually small sword is agility -1 actually for damage.
Oh, similar to attack.
Oh, that's right, because it's a fencing weapon too.
Yeah.
Oh, agility -1.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay, so that'll be a 3 for damage.
Alrighty, and again, these bandits are not hardy. 3 is actually all you need to incapacitate.
And I pulled up the damage, by the way. Thank you, guys.
Yes. So what does that look like as you send this guy down?
Oh yeah, so I mean, I basically I come around, I take off after them, I get this sword out, and just kind of like it's just really, this is too easy. He just kind of runs up behind him and just kind of real quick, boom, right in the back of the head, and just the guy drops like a sack of potatoes. Skender barely even notices it. Like he hits him, the guy goes down, and he's looking at the guy who would still be running away from him.
Here, the Yeah, Rush is just going to continue. So he sees his friend get smacked in the back of the head. He was trailing just a bit behind him. He doesn't even turn. He hears him fall and is just going to sprint. He turns the corner past the house site and begins just away. All right, and then Alice, there's current one bandit still running. Well, no, you took one out.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So no, that's all of them. So Ramsey, you cut down. He's holding the back of his leg, and kind of found in pain. Outside, Corden has also been knocked out, and Maria is being firmly held down.
Yeah, I'm just standing over Ramsey or whichever one I slashed. Just holding him there at knife point, sword point.
Well, Maria, I do have to apologize. It seems that was not nearly as interesting as I expected. But nonetheless, he'll take a swig and then cap it off. Uncle, it seems you dropped this, and he'll toss it towards him.
He catches it, but with kind of a like what the hell kind of look on his face. You know, when he pulls aside his cloak and kind of looks down and
the chase, of course. And again, Gavril is just a terrible liar. Like you completely catch him in it. He's actually known more for honesty, so when he lies, it's so bad.
He Hallis just shakes his head and puts it back and kind of firmly adjusts it, like to seat it. Like maybe it did slip out, you know, but kind of with a sideways glance, like, yeah, right. And drag the guy up onto his feet, probably standing on one leg at this point.
Yeah, he instinctively tries to stand up with both of his feet, but the other one just like gives out under the weight and the pain. Lets out just another grunt of pain. Almost falls, but your grasp holds him up.
I got one arm bent all backwards behind his back.
Yeah, it's clear with the injury that you gave him that he's not going anywhere.
It doesn't mean he couldn't take a swing at me.
Gavril will restrain Maria, if that is her name. And then we should probably find someone to turn them into. Any more dallying, and of course we'll be late. Kind of says it like he's hopeful that we're going to be late anyways.
Sorry, I was muted. It's true. Yeah, we need to find somebody. I don't know if we should count on Maria for any more help. So we'll have to do it ourselves.
I guess we'll all go together then, and kind of shoves the guy out the door, still holding his hand bent up behind his back, so he doesn't try and do anything stupid.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be that difficult from the some of the townspeople who had kind of been held hostage in the building to have them directly towards like a guard of some sort within the town.
And Skender would be kind of picking the unconscious guy up, trying to get him like leaned against something.
And within a few minutes, you've been taken to like a guard station. There's not much. This is a fairly small town. There's only one person currently at the station. And as the three of you approach, he kind of stands up from his seat on the front, the front porch area, and sees you carrying these this unconscious and this squirming person, and then Maria just immediately like jolts up out of his seat. My lords, what happened?
We've, and he kind of like pulls Maria around, taking care of your problem.
Seems you have
You
a
have
town.
stockades?
Hallis says it seems you have a town full of thieves and liars.
And that was before we got here.
Hallis would laugh at that audibly.
Yes, it seems, unfortunately, we don't have quite the manpower we'd hope to have.
Do you have chains at least that we can put them in?
Yes, of course. Bring them this way. And he kind of motions towards the station itself. And as he opens the door and leads you inside, pulls a couple of sets of shackles and ties a couple hands behind a couple backs. Thank you so much for your care of our village, my lords. You do us a great honor.
See that they get the Lord's justice, then, I suppose.
Start with the woman. Actually, no. Make her watch the others, and then do the woman. They're all thieves, and they deserve the same punishment. She collaborated with their works.
And you see Maria's face go white next to you.
Maria, if you
She
had just
looks as
been
if she
honest
wants-
with us, this would have been so much easier.
She looks as if she wants to say something, but she can't bring herself to or won't.
Forgive me.
Guard,
If you have something to add that could be helpful to this gentleman completing his job, perhaps now would be a good time so that maybe the Lord's justice would be a little less swift and severe for you.
she is kind of trembling in fear as this guard approaches, shackling her hands. There's more of them. More of us, I guess I should say. They sneak across the borders. They pick on the small towns on the edge. They're less well guarded.
So
And the other,
sorry.
is it the other bandit who's currently conscious and bleeding profusely? Just like looks over at her, and like, what are you doing? But like, then quickly realizes that he has no place to argue and stops.
Would the border that she's talking about, is that to the lands where we're headed?
So you would know that's the border of the whole region.
Gotcha.
Of your kingdom. So your keep is kind of close to the overall major house's lands.
Okay.
And that she's claiming at least that these people have come from across that border, your kingdom.
Okay.
I kind of motion towards Skender and Gavril to step outside for a moment and finish drawing. Ask them, shall we suggest to Maria that the next time this happens to her to encourage their plan, but to somehow let us know, kind of so we can get her on our side, kind of working for us, just find out, maybe we can get some information.
Skender kind of looks back a little wide-eyed. He just is like, well, that's an awfully cunning plan, Alice. I must say, I think Father would have taken a different tact. Perhaps all their heads on spikes to let people know where not to come to thieve, but I much prefer your plan.
Well, sometimes rather than catching 4 small fish, it's better to use them as bait. Aim for a larger target, you know?
And to be fair, Father would send their hands back to their own kingdoms and make them work the mines with one arm.
Yes, that would be much better.
This way, by the end of the season, we'll have enough workers to man the whole mine.
So you suggest we have her, well, Alice, I like your plan, but we have to get to a tourney. I don't know how long we can stay and use her as our mole.
That's not what I mean. I just mean perhaps we should let her go and take our chances. Maybe she'll realize her mistake and that she may be more well off informing for us versus being a lookout for them. It's worth a shot. What's one lookout to us?
Won't cost us anything, just a criminal. I suppose. Gavril, what do you think?
Seems fine.
To be fair, I don't know that I care.
And it may never work out, but
Should it happen again, it's this guard's fault. I'm fine with it. I would suggest we cut her hair and scare her a little bit, but sometimes I'm a little too brash. And you know that the way that he's suggesting is basically put her on a chopping block and chop her hair off instead of her head to scare the piss out of her.
So I would go back inside and grab Maria specifically and bring her back out to where we were standing and kind of explain the whole situation to her and give her some wise words as kind of, rather than do this again, you would be better off letting us know, and kind of hint that there may be a reward in order should she deem herself useful, and tell her to report to I assume they could use something like send a rider or ride yourself back to where our keep is. I don't know if there's the name of our town or our city or whatever, but and tell them that tell her to say that she reports to us, and that we'll take care of the rest.
Yeah, she would just nervously nod along as you explain it. Yes, my lord. Your mercy is much appreciated. I will gladly serve you.
And I kind of like reassure her and tell her that this plan will work as long as she doesn't fail us, and kind of give her a little bit of encouragement, just so she doesn't just turn around and walk away and forget about the whole thing. would now be a good time to roll bargain.
Yeah, go ahead.
As a 13.
Yeah, she just keeps nodding. She still hasn't quite composed herself enough to form much more than nods of agreement and short yeses and nos. She agrees. Yes, yes, my lord. I'll be your eyes and ears. I'll report anything I can.
So I'm going over our family chart, and it looks like I just wanted to remind myself of what we ended up purchasing. Looks like we purchased a maester or whatever we're going to call it for this setting.
Yes.
I think our house is probably not dominant enough to actually have a separate spy master, so that's probably who we're going to refer her to go talk to as the maester.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
And I don't
think
know
that
if they
would
have a
make
way
sense,
to, like, if there's anywhere nearby that she could get somebody to send a raven. Probably not. So she'd probably have to ride herself. But
yeah. Riding would be the best way for her to get there.
I'll before we leave, I would hand her 1 silver stag and tell her that there's more where this came from, and to not betray our trust.
Yes, my lord, your mercy and generosity is limitless. You have my word. I'm yours.
Great. Then we'll be off.
I'll be happy to leave this small town behind us.
All right. Well, unless there's anything else that anybody would like to do on the way out here, it sounds like we're getting pretty close to moving on.
Yeah, fetch our horses and move on.
Agreed.
All right. And with that, the group continues. Fetch your horses from where you had left them. Continue your ride out of this town, further up into the kingdom, heading north towards the heart of it. Find a couple of towns and rest at the next couple nights. And it's not too much longer until you can see the large walls of Castle Mayor on the horizon. You'll be there within another hour or two of a ride. If there's anything like to do in preparation before you arrive, you'll have a quick moment, or else we will go ahead and move up.
I think that Skender would just kind of ask to pull the horses over quickly before they arrive at the main host. And he would kind of say to Gavril, I'm sure I don't need to tell you, but we should don our make father happy clothes before riding in. And he would kind of take off his worn travel cloak and kind of take out a more fine cloak in the house colors and put it over his shoulder. And he would move his spear like out from under it to like hang kind of on the side where you could see the tip sticking up, and just arrange himself in the way that he's probably seen his father and brother and everyone else in the house do when they arrive at these sort of events.
Yeah, Gavril switches his cloak, but for the most part, his clothes have been mostly well kept up with. I imagine at some point he had a chance to kind of clean up after tackling somebody to the ground and everything, but for the most part, he actually wears the house colors for most of the time he's around, because Father has pretty much is using him as a pawn, and Gavril is very aware of his purpose as a pawn.
Yeah, Hallis would take off his traveling cloak and stuff it away, and do his best to kind of brush off the dust of the road off of his well-worn well-worn clothes. He doesn't really have anything formal, but he does his best to look presentable. I think most people would probably know who he is, being the Lord's brother. So.
And then Skender would just hop back on his horse and kind of situate himself, try to make himself look haughtier than he really is, and say, well, shall we impress the nobles with our fine clothes and stellar good looks?
Hallis leans over and says, do I have anything in my beard?
Yes.
Just hastily scratches at it, and then he winks at you.
Of course, my favorite part. And Gavril will kind of clip his boots into the horse to make it start moving forward again.
And it's not too much longer after that. The next by, you find yourself at the gates of this castle, and it's incredibly impressive. This castle is even larger than yours. It's huge, very well decorated, very well kept. And as you approach towards the gates, armored guards standing one on either side of it. One of them steps forward. He's got like a sheet of parchment in his hands.
We are the Aripi, here to pay homage to the newborn son. Skender would try to put on his most courtly voice.
Yeah, this guard kind of looks down, like scanning the parchment. Yes. Of course, we've heard of your arrival. He turns back. Gates. After a moment, the sound of creaking wood as the doors, the gates to this castle are cranked open. And as you guys enter, assuming that you enter, it's not long before you see a man on a horse riding up. The horse is pure white, and he's wearing. The armor is fancy to the point of almost looking ceremonial, though you can tell it's quite functional. There's an eagle emblazoned on the front of it, and if you guys would like to, if you think that you would know, would like to roll me a knowledge check. You can do so to see who this person is.
I would suspect Hallis has been to this town at least a couple of times, so he might. I rolled a 12.
I decided to roll based upon the armor itself. I think that Gavril, learning swordsmanship, has probably had discussions with his sword master about like different people he should be aware of And this is the kind of armor that would stand out in those stories. So a 10 is what I got.
Awesome. And yeah, with those rolls, Gavril, the armor stands out to you, as you say. The eagle emblazoned on this just marvelously crafted plate armor. As you would know as well, more from your knowledge of this place and their custom. It's general practice of the major house to send the first son out to greet nobles. And you would be able to tell, and Gavril, you would know this by the armor and just the immaculate equipment of this person. This is Darius Mayor, the heir and first son of the house.
Knowing that, Gavril will kind of take a step back from his uncle and half-brother, because not every family is as welcoming to bastards as our family happens to be.
Skender, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say Skender notices that and looks back, but he doesn't quite know who this person is. So he just kind of does like the double take kind of thing and then looks at this guy and kind of squints a little bit.
Hallis steps forward, or rides forward. I guess this guy's on horseback, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So he would just kind of ride forward and say, "Greetings, Darius." And he says, "I do believe the last time I saw you, you may not have been old enough to ride a horse."
Yes, Lord Hallis. Well, a lot has changed since then. You'd hardly be the boy that you remembered. You must be Lord Skender. He looks down.
Yes, and hearing his uncle, he puts two and two and he realizes he does know who this person is and just says, "Yes, oh, yes, of course, Darius. Oh, what a fine arraignment. This is sure to be a wonderful gathering. Thank you for greeting us so." And he will, whatever the standard is, perhaps he reaches out and does a forearm grasp sort of handshake between nobles.
And Darius will clasp your arm as well, but he'll kind of give you a look as he does so. Customary to refer to men of the major house as Lord Darius. He looks at both Hallis and then at Skender.
My apologies, Lord Darius. I have been traveling for some time. I perhaps forget the formalities.
And Hallis apologizes as well, kind of muttering something about his old age and how it's become troublesome recently.
Yes, I've heard stories of the children of Aripi and their lack of courtly ways, their misunderstandings of courtly formalities. And here it is in the flesh. Stirred along too. How kind of you.
At being addressed and kind of recognizing the tone and the way it goes, Gavril says nothing but brings his hand to his chest and does a very shallow bow, pretty much as respect is required.
And Darius will actually walk up towards you, Gavril. You tell me you're quite the swordsman.
I'm schooled in the ways of the South, yes, but I have yet to be contested in a tournament. To say I'm quite the swordsman is to say that a young man attending school is quite the scholar.
Of course. Well, I look forward to seeing the student in action then. Perhaps we even have a chance of making it towards me. That'd be quite the brawl.
At that, Hallis would kind of steer his horse, kind of between the two, to kind of like interject a little bit. He says, "You both would do well to respect each other. Chances are you may meet in the melee. I think you're both quite the swordsman, and let's let the tournament speak for itself."
So you're saying he's a equal swordsman to me?
No. By all means, I would
Seemed like
never
what you
make
were
that
saying.
claim, my lord. Only that you may witness, perhaps from a distance, as you yourself slay down your foes. You never know. That's why we have tournaments and things.
My
I
lord
really
Darius.
think that this kid has a chance to best me. Ha!
And he kind of, Hallis kind of scoffs and, of course, especially not in the armor you're wearing.
My lord Darius, I believe we only like to say that, of course, a major house hopes to find brave and talented swordsmen in their minor households. And we believe that my father has bred a good one for your armies. But you will see. I'm sure he cannot come anywhere near you. I mean, you belong to a major house.
He looks down to you, Skender, and then back up to Hallis. You would do well to learn your place, old man. Little nephew here has things down better than you do. Will probably be obsolete in a few years anyway.
He kind of scoffs and gives a little guffaw and says, "Oh, of course you're right, my lord."
Yes, please don't mind his age-addled brain. He is our kindly uncle. Please forgive him.
To like just the smuggest face that you could possibly imagine. Just smugness is just exuding from him.
Yeah, if he even has like a 1 in awareness, he knows I'm being very condescending here.
Yeah, he's probably aware, but it is taking the insult and flattery as it is anyways. Well, custom dictates that visiting lords to the major house are granted up in its halls. A room to stay at, and a seat in the court. Fought in the pre-tournament meeting. Suppose I'll
Sorry, I think I missed that last word. I heard, I suppose I'll...
then.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course, my lord.
And he'll turn his around, his armor gleaming in the sunlight with each tiny move. He'll turn one last look back towards you, like lock. His smug face turns almost to, it's not quite malice, but it's close. He'll turn away and begin his horse back down the main road.
Sorry, was he looking at me? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Suspect will
Gavril.
ride behind him.
Yeah, Gavril will attempt to not sully his uncle's bets that will be made by doing anything out of line. He's doing his best to remain humble, which is outside of Gavril's normal modus operandi.
And yeah, Skender will just be kind of chuckling, and he might look to Gavril and say, "How did I make it out of that one cleaner than Uncle?"
Hallis kind of gives you kind of a glance back with a little half smile.
Well, I suppose it'll be up to me to make sure that I make it to the top now.
I think you'll have to do your best not to kill one of these poor louts, but that's just the blind confidence that I have in you, Gavril.
Hallis gives Gavril, I don't know, maybe just some reassurance that they probably don't see swordsmen trained exactly as he's trained very often, and that that might give him an advantage.
All right, and with that, the city is yours. So basically, you guys would know that tonight there's going to be like a day before feast in honor of the coming tournament. So basically, all of the noble houses are going to be in attendance. Until then, if there's anything you'd like to do in the meantime, any places you'd like to go or people you'd like to try to find, otherwise we will move ahead until then.
I don't think Skender has any plot points, but when he gets set up in his room, he'll probably trade back for his more common-looking clothes, and basically attempt to engage in any festivities in a more in a less formal way that evening. And if he sees Gavril, he'll certainly go along with him.
Yeah, Gavril, for the most part, he's not even going to change. Once he's tethered the horse, he immediately begins kind of sampling the local drinks that are available and food. And that's how he's pretty much going to spend his evening. Not to the point that he is so intoxicated that it will be a problem tomorrow for the tournaments, but he will enjoy his evening.
Is the feast tonight kind of where the pre-tourney meeting takes place, or is that separate?
Yeah, it's basically all rolled to one kind of moment and then kind of brief introduction.
Yeah, Hallis probably find a place to get his flask refilled, since he seems to be running on empty somehow. And await the feast.
Awesome. I think we flash ahead a couple hours. If you have readied yourself, however little or much as you would, and the three of you probably closer towards little than much. You find yourselves outside of the main hall of Castle Mayar. There's crowds of people, guys, some of them you don't, all noble, or at least the vast majority of them. Region. People are piled further in to the hall, preparing for the feast that's to come. And Gavril, you feel someone grab your arm and try to get your attention.
Gavril will will stop and turn. Kind of at first with his normal jovial nature, and he'll catch himself before he makes kind of a fool of himself. And he composes himself right at the end to see who this is before he goes really normal Gavril instead of fancy pretend Gavril.
Yeah, it's not a noble person. At least if it is, then they've done very well to hide it. There's a woman in cloak. The hood is kind of pulled down, not all the way down her face, but over her head. You didn't even see for her when she slipped into the crowd. And she looks at you and just says, there are those who work
Thank you
against
for
you.
your... I'm sorry, you broke up in the middle there. You said watch yourself, and then...
And she said, watch yourself tomorrow. There are people working against you.
Gavril leans very close to this woman, unknowing who she is. Partially because I'd like to try to sneak a peek at who she is. So I'd like to do an awareness.
Okay.
For notice here. And I get to add my fighting because of my fancy water dancing stuff. So that is 23. If I don't recognize her by name, I'd like to at least be able to distinguish her so that when I see her unhooded, I can at least pick her out of a crowd.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I would say. So you don't recognize this person's face, but you do get a good, and you can see like these like deep blue eyes, just long brown hair, kind of the hood and the cloak. And you get a good look at her, and you're able to pick her out again if you saw her.
And once he's much closer to her, he kind of whispers in, I'm always working against those that are working against me. That is the lot in life for a bastard. I appreciate your concern, but it is nothing more than I have always faced. And then he kind of like embraces her in this like huge overdone hug that's more for show for the people around. And then he grasps her by the shoulders and he says, it was good to see you again. And he kind of turns away to let her break away.
She gives you a nod, and then in a moment, the crowd has swallowed her, and it's almost as if she's gone. You lose her, just this mass of people, and just as quickly as she showed up, she's vanished back into the crowd from which she appeared.
Yeah, and Gavril lingers for a few moments, and he glances back where she was and just sees normal crowd type people. He kind of shakes his head, and like before the camera shifts away, you just see Gavril turn to another group of like younger men that like are passing around drinks, and he grabs one and he cheers with them, and then the camera will shift focus.
House is probably just making his way through the crowd, greeting, looking for people that he recognizes and just greeting them. Probably specifically looking for people he's fought with. But other than that, just making the rounds.
Yeah, you absolutely be able to go and find a couple of the lords of other houses, some of the older ones that you would recognize. Just kind of pass around just formalities and greetings.
Skinder is looking for the least noble person here to be sitting by, and that would be where he'd be sitting. I'm thinking probably some sort of a bard that he would probably make conversation with about traveling in different places, if there is one.
Yeah, I'd say that would make sense that that there's like a couple of entertainers kind of like taking shifts throughout the night, and like as one of them is kind of playing songs in the side of the hall. There's another one that's kind of sat down at like one of the like back tables. It's not part of like the main hall, like the banquet table. It's like a separate place where there's a couple of like the entertainers and like some of like the important people who aren't nobles, like some of like the merchants of the area and people like that have kind of settled.
Yeah, and I think the more lowbrow people would like Skender. He'd use his access to the other dining room to come back with some of the richer mead and ales and kind of hand one to one of the entertainers that had sat down. And he'd just be saying something like, "So, have you ever gone over here, you know, across the grass plains and over by the western forest? Have you ever been there?" And, you know, listening to what they say and then regaling them with his own stories.
Yeah, and they would gladly swap tales back and forth with you. You can gather most of them are probably secondhand or made up, but they tell it as if it was them.
Alice is probably experiencing something similar, except he's exchanging war stories with a bunch of bearded men, people who he's encountered in the past, fought with, probably giving them some story about the longest shot he ever made, the longest kill, or maybe a hunting story or something like that.
And as people's food gets passed around, drink passed around, some of the festivities begin. About an hour into kind of everybody getting settled in and starting to socialize. There's the blow of a bugle that goes out through the hall, like a signaling trumpet. And as everybody kind of quiets down, Lord Maiar, at the head of this banquet table, stands up. He stands up on top of the chair at the head of this table. Welcome all to this great hall. We are so happy to have you here in honor of our new son. Many of you have traveled far to get here. We appreciate your visits. We appreciate your presence. You always have a home in our keep. Of course, I'm sure many of you are wondering about this tourney that some of you have journeyed here to enter. Of course, I would like to take a moment to go over the ground rules. There will be 3 separate events. You may choose to enter those for which you believe yourself capable, and cower away from those that you think that you don't. He kind of smirks. Those events will be jousting, single combat, and archery. Combat are as follows. Will be determined by first blood. You expect not to see any fatal injuries here. Surely those of you here will have the restraint and damage is done. He who strikes the first blow that draws will be the victor and will be continued to the next round. This bracket will go up until a victor is chosen. The same rules apply for jousting. If the horse or to take an injury that draws blood, archery will be determined by a contest of aim. Distant shots and the best scores will advance. Of course, we expect honor to be upheld to its highest standard. He steps down from the chair, picking up a glass of wine. this ornate chalice that it's resting in. And he holds it up. To the tournament! There's a roar of cheers that go out from all the noblemen as they all raise a glass and toast and begin to drink.
Cheers, Skender says next to his new lowborn acquaintances. He says, cheers to showing them what I've learned on my travels, eh? And he just throws back the stein and slams it down on the table and wipes his face.
Yeah, the entertainers sort of kind of like slaps you on the back, and then kind of like realizing that he probably shouldn't have done that to a noble, kind of jerks back.
So Skender has to roll with it. He sees that and he kind of like lords up for a second, like, it's okay. It's fine. And he just grabs his drink and finishes that and puts that down. It says we're all friends.
I think for Gavril, it's one of those frat boy moments. Like the whole crowd is like, yeah, and then like as it's starting to tail off, that's when Gavril realizes what's going on, and he's just cheering because other people are cheering. No real clue as to what's going on. He's been talking to one of the serving wenches, just trying to get her attention and failing miserably all night.
Yeah, I imagine like every time he goes to like call her over for any meaningful amount of time, like one of like the full like lords calls her over instead, and she's like to answer their call.
Oh yeah, like
Hell's
he doesn't have
given
a
his
chance
status,
to
like
work.
Hallis is probably
Yeah.
talking to the other, the older veteran warriors or whoever he's talking with, trying to get an idea of what to expect and who they think is going to win the melee, the single combat. Just trying to get I feel like he would maybe already know some of this, but trying to get a feel for who they think is going to win. Not thinking about the archery contest at all or asking about any of that.
Yeah, if you want to give me some sort of maybe like persuasion or some sort of like charm, just to kind of see how well you can associate with some of these people.
Sure. How about I don't know, would that be cunning or
Persuasion?
just persuasion? Sure.
Yeah.
It's a 10.
As people start to get, a couple drinks in, people start to get a little bit more open. As you start kind of probing, like, oh, who do you have your bets on? The one of the men is like, hands down, whatever money that you brought with you, yes, he's definitely gonna win.
I'm sorry, I missed the name. Do you say Darius?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then one of the other men was, I don't know, I've heard stories about some upstart kid from down by the border. And people say he might have a shot. The other guys, come on, like, it's just a kid. There's no way he's gonna be any match for Darius. If he even makes it that far, you've got to be kidding me.
Like as they're having this discussion in the background, like Gavril's getting carried off by a couple people, like crowd surfing through.
Hallis is just kind of encouraging them to, getting them to talk, like getting people to like you by asking them questions so they can talk about themselves. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, and they start going just like more into just even more of just like all the stories say how great of a fighter Darius has become, and how he's like such a great heir for his father's throne, and he'll be a great combat leader, and he's a great duelist. Just like all excessive praise. Like it's just that one man in particular who first told you to bet on him is just basically just gushing about him, just going on and on and on and on.
I'm agreeing with everything he says. I'm being strangely nice to everybody. I'm not asking anybody anything about the archery contest unless somebody says something about it.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, someone will like attempt to like steer the conversation. Like one of the archers will try to like bring up the archery contest, but like the vast majority of the crowd is much more interested in the jousting and the single combat.
That's the way Hollis
archery.
likes it. So he's not trying to change anyone's conversations.
And seeing Gavril kind of getting rowdy, Skender is going to kind of stand up from his friends there, putting his arm kind of the same way he had been put upon before on his friends, and just say, if I might give you a little tip, House Arippy, all the way. And then he just walks away towards where he had last seen Gavril carousing.
Yeah, that's pretty much how Gavril is going to spend his night, is carousing. He's more or less like just fraternizing and chit-chatting with the other noble children that are of the same kind of age bracket, paying particular attention to bastards because he feels like they always fly under the radar and their skills are not quite as valued in some families.
Yeah, and Gavril, you would enjoyment see some of like the other nobles as you go around party of you, particularly some of like the younger noble women, like they'll like see you and like whisper to each other, and like you can see like one of them clearly at you and like turn and say something. Has somehow or another made a splash upon you here.
Okay.
Hallis, at some point in the night, would make sure to cordially, well, not cordially, formally give his greetings to the Lord. I don't know what his name was. I don't know what his first name is. The head of House Mayor, the presiding Lord, to greet him personally and just give him all the formalities and all that stuff.
His name is Nikolay.
Okay, perfect.
And I imagine like as you greet him, like it's almost like he takes the minimum possible like time to like formally greet you back before his attention is like immediately grabbed by like 14 other people who are also trying to like schmooze the big lord.
Yeah, that's totally fine. He just wanted to make a point of doing that.
Alrighty, and I think with that, the night would kind of fade to black. We see to drink with these in Alice kind of pulling more of the formal duties of greeting this lord and that lord, making sure that he's some area of responsibility here, at least to some degree. And then Gavril just being carried off in this wave of partiers, these these younger crowds who have a little bit less control, if we want to put it that way. And with that, we have reached our time here for tonight. So I think that is going to be a good place for us to leave it off for now, unless there's any closing actions you guys want to take as the night's winding down. You can go ahead and wrap that up. We'll go ahead and get set up right for the events of the tourney. Most starting to meet.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's great. Good point to leave off.
Awesome. That will go ahead and wrap up our for tonight. So it's the first time we have a new thoughts so far about the system, things that are playing out like you expected, not like you expect. We haven't gotten too much into some of the nitty gritty. What's kind of first impression so far?
So far, I'm enjoying the system. I would say my only major criticism is the book itself is a little unwieldy. Things are in places where you think you've read everything, and then you don't realize that you missed like a major chunk of it. So that I found a little bit unwieldy. But the system itself, the whole dice pool matches the number of the stat, and the bonus, the plus, is equal to the number of the dice pool. That all works really well, and that's pretty familiar, and I like that. I think it's a good level of simplicity.
I think it's fun. I like having a little bit more numbers involvement, as opposed to like 5th edition. And it's fun to roll more dice. It's just, it makes everything, it just changes the way any kind of, any attack or anything like that. It's kind of fun that way too.
So I have the most experience, I think, with this system out of the group. I've played this in a campaign before. I'm excited to return to some of the stuff that I really like the intrigue combat system is very much like the physical melee combat system. I remember really liking that. And the tournament system, right now where it sounds like we're doing a very basic tournament, there's actually like a really in-depth tournament rules that you can apply to games. That's actually pretty neat to play out, where like strikes have certain point values and stuff like that too.
Interesting. Yeah, I might have to look a little bit more into that. I
want to say it's in one of the extra books. I know that at some point they talk about like for archery, it's basically like 10 shots accumulated value is how they typically do it. But like for archery, there's a way to break it down by like arrow location on the board and stuff like that.
I like that. Yeah, I'll definitely have to see if that's part of the materials that I've gathered for this system so far. If it is, then we can definitely look at building up some of those rules into the events. I'd love to kind of play those out.
Just a quick comment on this session. I love the fact that we're kind of starting with the tournament. I think that's awesome. I've run tournaments and I've participated in tournaments in 5th edition, and it's always really fun because everyone kind of gets into their own, whatever they're good at, you know what I mean? So it gives them an opportunity to kind of shine, which is always fun. So from a gaming
standpoint. I mean, the way that we kind of built up the setting, like it seemed like we're potential for some conflict and drama to start as the world continues. But right now it's generally kind of a realm of peace. Not completely, but mostly. I figured like that'd be an easy way to get you guys like directly involved with like digging into the mechanics and your characters and your specialties without necessarily just going into full-blown war right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I think it's just an interesting part. Like so many campaigns and just RPG sessions in general tend to just jump straight into like drama and like action. And it's like you kind of on a lot of cool social elements that you out of like the courtship and the tournaments and things like that you never really see. It's always just like war and like defeating the evil bad guys. So I kind of wanted to explore different parts of this type of world that you know, I don't normally get to see in other systems like a generic 5th edition campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Tournament is also quintessentially a Game of Thrones type of event, which is awesome. Totally from the point of view that you just said, with possible intrigues and just all the people you meet and all the actions that everyone takes at the same time.
Yeah, to anyone who's read the Duncan Egg short stories, this like feels very close to almost how the I think it's called the Laughing Tree Night or something like that was the first book. This feels very similar to that. It's very cool.
The Night of the Laughing Tree, I think is.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of fun in this session.
Alrighty. Yeah, a little bit of a slower to start, but I think, you know, the first session of a campaign is generally going to be a little bit of wind up. But I think it puts us in a good place to kind of see how the characters interacted with each other and kind of build a rapport between you guys and set up for some, hopefully some cool stuff to happen pretty soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I think with that, close the broadcast here for tonight. This live. Awesome. Thank you. Or for anybody who catches live. We'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks, everybody, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks, guys. See you later.